conference to really do a rundown of what it is to be an apprenticeship program. So we have Mark Genoa from Philadelphia Works, who's really going to run through the ins and outs of what an apprenticeship program looks like. This will lead into our Pre-Apprenticeship Bidders Conference. We do ask that if you have any questions, to write your questions on the note cards. We'll collect the note cards after the bidders portion that's starting at 9:30. We will post all questions from both the apprenticeship information session and the bidders conference on our website at pyninc.org within 2 business days. So with that, I'm going to introduce Mark Genoa from Philadelphia Works, who's really going to run through what it is to run an apprenticeship program.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. So you have to stop me. I usually, during presentations, ask for questions a lot, so if I do, this is great. As Kelsey indicated. All right, is that good? Microphone good? Excellent. So we decided really to do this apprenticeship information session for the bidders conference because, as you will see, one of the key main factors in a good, well-run pre-apprenticeship program is a connection to that registered apprenticeship program. So we felt it important to really go over to statistics, what an apprenticeship program is, and kind of give you some background around that. So at the heart of it, what is a registered apprenticeship program? So a lot of people probably think of these programs in the skilled and construction trades, where they've been kind of these stalwart union-backed programs for a number of decades. But really we're seeing in these past couple of years that this apprenticeship model can really apply to all types of occupations and for all types of populations that we serve here as different providers in the group. So this kind of graphic I typically use is a good graphic to explain what is a registered apprenticeship program. So first and foremost, there's this idea of business involvement. So these programs can't get off the ground, can't go anywhere without an employer. An apprenticeship is a full-time job. It's not an internship. It's not a work experience. It is a full-time position. An employer will develop an apprenticeship around a particular occupation. So when they hire into that occupation, that individual will be entered into an apprenticeship program. So that's something important to learn, that it is a full-time job. And these models are really customizable and flexible depending on the employer's needs. So as you will see, typically no 1 or 2 apprenticeship programs look alike. Even if it's for the same occupation, they necessarily won't look alike, because from employer to employer, they can design these programs and customize it if it's their needs of their position and their operation. 2, there's structured on-the-job training or on-the-job learning is what I call it. So this on-the-job learning is the apprentice working in the position under the guidance of a mentor or mentors, or typically in apprenticeship language they call them journey persons from the skill trades. But this is an individual that's trained to really guide the apprentice through the task it takes to do the job. So as part of the program, different competencies and work processes and tasks are laid out. So the apprentice is learning these from mentors and demonstrating them on the job. So this is them working in their regular position under the guidance of mentors. 3, there's a big educational component to an apprenticeship program, what is called related technical instruction. So this is the classroom component of an apprenticeship program, where apprentices are learning various, taking courses that back up what they're learning on the job. This related instruction can be done by the employer, if the employer has the capacity to do that. It can be done by an educational institution. A lot of times, typically community college courses or other educational courses are worked into an apprenticeship program. So not only is the apprentice learning the different skills that back up what they're doing on the job, but they're also earning college credits, maybe towards an associate's degree, towards a bachelor's, or even towards some type of certification. And then 3, it can also be done by a training provider. Related instruction can be done online, or it can be a combination of any of those. Really, it's really up to the employer, again, employer-led, to determine what courses have they best identified to really back up what the apprentice is learning on the job. And then 4, rewards for skill gains. So as part of an apprenticeship program, there is wage gains built into the program. So typically, I'll give you an example. If you have, if an employer has a position that say they start at $15 an hour, typically they'll start an apprentice a bit below that wage at say $11 an hour, and then throughout the program, they'll build in certain steps. So when an apprentice either achieves a certain number of hours, they achieve a certain number of competencies, they will receive that bump in wages. They'll keep receiving this wage gains until they receive the last one, which brings them up to the starting wage. Some employers have the apprentices end past the starting wage because they feel they're better trained as typically as opposed to their employer that they hire full time. Again, these wage gains, the frequency and the amount is again determined by the employer. DOL just requires at least one wage gain in it, and typically we see anywhere from, I would say, 2 to 4 wage gains built into a program. But again, it's up to the employer. And then at the end, this idea of the national credential that is received. So every apprentice that finishes a program, they're issued a certificate by DOL or the associated state agency that really acknowledges this apprentice has completed the apprenticeship program in whatever occupation they are performing the apprenticeship in. And this credential is recognized nationwide. So, so an employer, if they want to hire a former or apprentice, they can really request DOL all the different documents that this apprentice was trained in, so they know this individual was fully trained. So I just kind of want to take a moment to go over the whole registered apprenticeship system, so you get an idea of how you would register a program. So in about half the states in the nation, as you can see by the lighter states in this graphic right here, if you want to go and register an apprenticeship program, you would go directly to USDOL Office of Apprenticeship. And in the other half of the states, the darker color on the map there, DOL has given authorization to various state agencies to be that approval registration body, and PA includes one of them. So in PA, when you want to go register an apprenticeship program, you go right to the Department of Labor and Industry. And there's 2 facets to that. So really the approval and registration body is the PA Apprenticeship and Training Council in PA. So this council is made up of members appointed by the governor, currently Governor Wolf, and they represent various actors in the apprenticeship world, from employers, from training providers, from public agency. So this is really the body you go in front of with your apprenticeship program, and they're the ones who ask you questions about it, and then ultimately provide that approval so it can get registered. Really the operation and reporting aspect of once you're approved is coming out of the Department of Labor and Industry in PA, and that's the Apprenticeship and Training Office. So after your program is approved, you really go to this office to really get guidance on operating your program, reporting your program, reporting the number of apprentices that start, that exit, that complete, and so on. And the gentleman who guides that office, his name is Eric Ramsey. So he's the director of apprenticeships in PA. So he's really, he sees that office, he kind of instructs on the regulations around apprenticeship. So this gentleman is a good man to know in PA, because he really kind of holds all of the apprenticeship documents and guidance on the program. So I just kind of want to go over some figures that I got from the USDOL. So as you can see, the active apprentices by industry, still really much in that construction and kind of skilled trades field. You can see a little bit popping up in the retail trade, the healthcare, but we see those areas growing, especially over the past couple of years with many initiatives, starting off with the American Apprenticeship Initiative that was launched in late 2015 with the Obama administration. Nationwide initiative put about $46 million behind different apprenticeship efforts throughout the nation. The PA region received one of such of those grants. But then after that, really, the federal government has been putting out more money and guidance on apprenticeship programs, especially in the areas that you don't typically see it, in healthcare, IT in the retail sector and educational services. And then also the state of PA has really released a number of grant opportunities over the past year to really support this work as well. And also we see a lot of private foundations really interested in this work and how they can support it as well. If you see the breakdown currently of the demographics of the number of apprentices, you see women make up a small percentage, people of color as well. The average age is about 28 plus, and then you can see the small percentage of military veterans. And really the initiatives on the federal and the state level are really looking to increase all those numbers and kind of bring down that average age to make it more accessible to students who are coming out of high school, to individuals with their GED that are under 24. So there's been real efforts and money we'll put out to increase the incorporation of women, people of color, and military vets, as well as bring that average age down to include all types of individuals. So there's different models to an apprenticeship program. I would say that the one that typically the skilled trades have used and has been around for a while is this idea of a time-based registered apprenticeship program. So these programs range from 1 to 6 years. So they can be as little as a year long up to 6 years. Again, this is determined by the employer. And this typically corresponds with the technical skills with an occupation. When you have some of your highly technical apprenticeship programs, I would say like welding and the other skilled trades, you'll typically see them upwards of 3 to 4 years long. But then what we've been seeing in more the IT and healthcare sector, about 1 to 3 year programs have been accomplishing that. Again, if you're looking at higher level apprenticeship programs in healthcare, you would probably want to bump up those years. Again, it's really based on the employer. And then these time-based models, there's a minimum ratio that goes on for an apprenticeship program. So back to that on-the-job learning. So for every 2,000 hours of on-the-job learning, which kind of works out basically a year-long program, there has to be a minimum of 144 hours of related instruction. And this 144 hours, again, can be accomplished by the employer themselves, by a community college, by another training provider, online, or a combination of those three. Again, that's just a minimum of 144. Employers can choose to go above that for a year-long program. But then once you start getting into 2 and 3 years, you would just double and triple that ratio accordingly in those programs. And these programs, with the wage gains, it's really determined, the apprentices receive wage gains depending on the number of hours they complete. So an employer says, once you satisfy, say, 400 some hours, you'll receive a quarter bump in your raise, and so on, until they reach the end of the program. The second one is this idea of a competency-based program. And these programs we've been seeing more and more because they really, they have a different approach to a registered apprenticeship program. So these really are based in that individuals receive their wage gains, progress through the program, once they demonstrate the skills that it takes to do on the job. So it's really an apprentice is working on the job, and the employer says, once you can show me you can complete X number of competencies or X number of tasks, you receive that wage bump. And again, these programs have been coming up more and more because not all individuals necessarily learn on the same timeline. That someone could learn something in 2 hours, another person could take 10 hours to learn. So these competency programs really take away that time limit, and really it's just based on when the apprentice learned those skills. The third model is a hybrid model. So it's a combination of the two, time and competency based. So it's really tying the completion of competencies to a certain number of hours. And this is in one, just show an apprentice is not spending an inordinate amount of time in an apprenticeship program. An employer can say, we'll give you X number of hours to demonstrate that competency. If you do it less, great. If not, we'll kind of adjust and see what it exactly takes. So really, the stalwart has been that time-based, but we've definitely been seeing the more competency and hybrid-based models popping up more and more with employers. So there's different models, again. This idea of a single employer model. So this is probably makes up the majority of apprenticeship programs. I would say. So the single employer is just simply one employer developing their apprenticeship program and running their apprenticeship program. They're providing the on-the-job learning, and the related instruction either comes from them or an external partner. Another model that has been coming up more and more is this idea of a multi-employer group model. So this is when you have a number of employers with a shared occupation. They come together and develop an apprenticeship program together. So they identify one sponsor within that group. So that sponsor can be one of the employers involved, or it can be an external partner, an intermediary per se, be it a nonprofit, a community college can be a sponsor of a program, a chamber of commerce can be a sponsor of a program. Almost really any entity can be a sponsor of the program. What that means is that sponsor really manages the registration of the program and really the operation of the program. So when you have a group of employers in this group model, you form what is called an apprenticeship committee that really decides on how the apprenticeship program is operating. They can say in the hiring of apprentices. And in this group model, the apprentices, again, they're full-time employees of each employer involved, and the program can be customized depending on the employer's needs. The RTI in one of these programs is typically provided by one external partner. It can be customized. Some employers are providing some things. So it's really this group model. Each employer takes an apprentice or apprentice, but they're really coming together to fully operate the program. Some of the benefits are this: if they have an external partner guiding the program, it takes some of the burden off of that reporting requirement within the employer. So employers typically have been more willing to start off in their apprenticeship program in this kind of group model context. And then lastly, if there's a union involved with an employer, they have to be included into the apprenticeship program. And with that, there is the collective bargaining agreement has to be amended to add that apprenticeship language in there for how the program is going to be run. And then also, similar to the group model, a joint apprenticeship committee is formed between the union and the employer to really decide on the selection of apprentices, how the program is running, to make adjustments and so on. So again, some more different models in how you operate an apprenticeship program. Again, it gets to the idea of these programs are really customizable and flexible. So the traditional is when apprentices are doing the OGL, the OJL, and RTI together. So they're working on the job and they're taking classes maybe at night, maybe some days during the week, maybe on the weekend, so they intermix while they're doing the apprenticeship. Second model is this idea of front loading. So their apprentices are taking their RTI up front. Maybe they take community college classes up front. The employer puts them through a 2-week to month-long session where they're accomplishing a majority of their RTI right up front, and then after that they're following with the OJL. And then thirdly, this idea of the segmenting, so blocks of the RTI and OJL throughout the program. So they start off in maybe a 2-week block, they do a 2-week block of the OJL, and continue to finish the program. Again, there's no right or wrong model to pick. Again, it's up to the employer to choose. A DOL just provides these frameworks where they can model the program. So these are the different items and documents that you would need, that an employer would need to register the program. There is some copies in the back, not necessarily to take with you, but just to view. I just want to provide some examples. Again, these are the documents you would need to go in front of the Apprenticeship and Training Council to get your program registered. The first one, the Standards of Apprenticeship. So this is really based on the model you select, either if it's a single employer sponsored model, if it's a group model, or if it's a joint or union model. So these are really, these are the 3 kind of types of standards, and these are really the governing directives of your apprenticeship programs. Kind of gives that high-level view of an employer's apprenticeship program, how it's going to run, the selection process, the wage gains in there, how many mentors are going to be signed. So these are governing directives of your program. The state provides these templates of the language they want included. Employers can simply just plug where the information is blank, or they can customize it more to add additional language of what they want included in their apprenticeship program. The next document is the work process schedule and RTI outline. So this is kind of what I call the heart of an apprenticeship program. Typically, this is the document that usually takes the most work in developing an apprenticeship program, because these are all the competencies and tasks the apprentice will be learning on the job. So it's really an employer breaking down the position and thinking through what it takes to train individuals in that position. And then with the RTI outline, this is kind of the outline of the different courses and training the apprentice will go through. I provided an example of a certified nursing assistant program, which has all the different competencies with the tasks below it laid out. And then on the back you have the RTI outline. This is probably one of the most simplistic ones. These documents can range in kind of be thicker packets depending on the competencies, can get more detailed, but this is just an example of what this work process schedule would look like. And again, this is really breaking down the position and the apprenticeship program. And then, so the council would also likes to see some sample material from that related instruction, be it a course curriculum, some sample curriculum materials, PowerPoint presentations, so they can view what the apprentices will be learning as part of the related instruction. And then apprenticeship agreement. So this agreement, for every apprentice in an apprenticeship program, the employer and the apprentice sign off on this agreement. And really this means that the apprentice acknowledges they're entering into the apprenticeship program, the employer acknowledges they're hiring this individual as an apprentice, and then all the details of the apprenticeship program. So the apprentice personal information, as well as the wage gains they will receive and where the related instruction is coming, the probationary period. By no means is this a contract per se that an employer has to keep an apprentice the whole length of the apprenticeship program, or even if the apprentice has to stay. Again, they're full-time employees, so the employer can choose to treat them as a full-time employee, and this agreement can be separated at any time if the apprentice is not working out, or the apprentice feels that this program is not right for that. So this is by no means kind of a strict contract where the employer has to keep the apprentice. They treat them like a regular employee going through the program. And then the workforce and journeyperson stats. So really it will determine how many apprentices an employer can take. So there's a ratio in PA. On the federal level, there's a ratio of 1 journey person to every 1 apprentice, but PA has a kind of a stricter, per se, requirement for every 1 apprentice, you have to have 4 journey persons identified. So this is where really this document comes out, because in this document you list a number of journey persons in your workforce that can account for your apprentices. So it really determines how many apprentices an employer can take on at one time. So this document, you list the employer lists the total workforce, kind of the male, female, and breakdown, and then you get more specific into the actual journey person. So how many journey persons an employer has in that position. So you need to submit that, as well as an affirmative action plan. So if an employer is going to have 5 or more apprentices, so more than 4 apprentices at one time, they have to submit an affirmative action plan to the state. If say an employer is just going to take 1 apprentice at the time of registration, whenever they bump up to that above 4 mark, they would have to submit that plan to the state with this increased number of apprentices. And then if an employer is going to use an external provider for their RTI, they have to provide an acknowledgement letter from that provider, basically stating that this provider, be it a community college, acknowledges that they're providing the RTI in their apprenticeship program. So that has to be submitted as well. So for the different models, there's a couple additional documents needed. For the group model, an employer acceptance agreement is needed. So again, when you have the multi-employers, each employer basically has to sign this agreement to accept and join the program and follow the specifics of the program. And then for the union joint model, again, I mentioned that collective bargaining agreement, that has to be added to the CBA of any union with this apprenticeship program. So some benefits of these programs. As you can see, these apprenticeship programs are more formalized, enhanced training specific to needs. So, typically an employer will hire into the position, maybe someone right out of college, even right out of high school, even if they have a couple years of work under their belt. And really, an employer has to train that individual anyway. You know, probably all of us have been trained in their position. So this really allows the employer to kind of take that step back and really analyze the position, analyze what it takes to learn the position, with help from DOL, with the state agency, with the local workforce board, to really help analyze what it takes to do that position, so an employer can be more confident that these individuals are fully trained, you know, at the end of the program. It's not like, you know, so-and-so hired, trained them in this. Did the person get trained in that, do that? You know, sometimes it gets kind of confusing that they don't know what they've been training, but with this formalized program, they can really literally check down the list of competencies the individual learned, who they learned it from, so by the end of the apprenticeship program, they can be confident that the individual is fully trained, you know, and in a lot of cases better trained than if they took on a full-time employee regularly. You develop a pipeline of highly skilled workers. So apprenticeship programs can be developed for new workers hired in. They also can be developed for incumbent workers. Say you have a lot of entry-level positions and you want to move those individuals up to more middle-level management. An apprenticeship program can be developed around a middle-level management position where you're moving the entry-level folks up to middle level and then bringing in new individuals with another apprenticeship program. So they can kind of operate simultaneously, so you're constantly kind of have that pipeline of skilled workers. And then really, you know, these programs can reach individuals that an employer typically wouldn't hire without the guise of a formal program. So maybe an employer is hesitant to hire an individual without a formal bachelor's degree. They're hesitant to hire individuals with just their GED with not a lot of experience. So we've seen that employers have been more willing to hire a younger population, a population with less experience, less education, really under the guise of an apprenticeship program, especially when you're including college credit so that individual can work to their associate's degree. So we've seen that in a lot of employers more willing to take on these programs. Increase the retention rate of new and current employees. So DOL has done a couple of studies that have shown that the retention rate increases with an apprenticeship program. Basically because an employee, an apprentice, sees the employer as more loyal to them if they're putting this much investment, if they're providing them that college credit, that enhanced training. So this employee, this apprentice figure is more willing, more kind of satisfied with their employer, more willing to stay after their apprenticeship program is over. So, you know, we see it in employers with a high retention rate of a position. We've seen them implement an apprenticeship program, and that kind of that retention rate goes up in those positions, including, like I mentioned before, your employers are expanding their reach of the typical population that they could hire with, you know, before they might have been hesitant to do so. Access to other resources. So as I mentioned, the federal government, the state government has released a number of grant funding sources. Just back in April, the state of PA released about 1.4 million, where already approved apprenticeship programs could apply to get from 50,000 to 150,000 grants to help in anything. And you know, the state it plans on more, and also that we've been hearing talk that the federal government plans on more. But one of the main factors is you already have to be an approved program, and if they want to fund a pre-apprenticeship program, that pre-apprenticeship has to have a connection to already approved registered apprenticeship programs. So as you can see, there's benefits to going through that registration process. You can access these resources where you couldn't. And also from the workforce board perspective, there's additional resources that you can access with this already approved program. I think I'll turn it over to Kelsey now.
to be registered with the state of Pennsylvania. So a pre-apprenticeship program is really providing that early exposure to a registered apprenticeship program. A pre-apprenticeship program is really, you know, connecting to what the apprentice will be doing for that journey. Really, it is to align, pre-apprenticeship programs align with the registered apprenticeship curriculum, and really, there to assure the quality control. The idea of pre-apprenticeships is to increase that retention of apprentices in the apprenticeship program and streamline the recruitment process. Those individuals that are exposed to apprenticeship programs in their pre-apprenticeship will have the awareness of what is required of them while they're an apprentice. So really that idea of the pre-apprenticeship program is to connect to the apprentice program with aligning all the different curriculum guidelines and being aware of what's the industry all about. We're going to talk a little bit more during the bidders conference as to what the requirements are in the pre-apprenticeship RFP curriculum and how that should be aligning to apprenticeship programs. So thanks to you, Mark, for providing the overview of what it is to be a registered apprenticeship program and what the different requirements and documents it takes to submit to the Pennsylvania Department of Labor. So once again, if you have any questions regarding apprenticeships and any of the information that is here, so please write that on the note card, and we will collect the note cards after the bidders portion, which will start in about 20 minutes. We will post all of these slides online at www.pyninc.org. Sure, it's pyninc.org. Yep, so we will post both the slides, and we have been filming this as well, so that will be posted online. We will also post the slides and the presentation for the 9:30 presentation online as well. If you have any questions regarding apprenticeship, anything that is not related to the RFP and apprenticeships, you may reach out to Mark. And that is information on there.
And like I mentioned, there's the documents, they're in the back, as well as if someone wants to view the different program documents, take the register program.
So this concludes our apprenticeship information session. Once again, we will have about 15 to 20 minutes. If you guys want to absorb this information, take a break. We have some coffee and some pastries in the back for you, and the restroom is just down that hall. And then we'll reconvene around 9:30 to talk about the RFP